It's time for another episode of the Shaun Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, dig into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is my friend Joel Marzzarella, and he is brand new to the Destiny Image team, so we decided to get together and do an interview so you can get to know one of our key staff members who is doing a bunch of amazing things behind the scenes. Joel, I always look forward to hanging out with you more often. I'd like to see it more in person, but hey, if we got to do it virtually, I'll take that too. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, great to be here.
Well,
I'm just really sorry about that.
No,
I'm just really excited to just say hello, just not to you, but to everyone else that's here.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that's kind of fun, just in the day and age we're in. Regardless of the role you have in marketing or PR and such, we're in a way at a time when you can connect with your audience and they can actually get to know you. It's a weird thing, but I always feel like it's important because it helps to humanize who we are as a company. I love that we can give people insight on all the stuff that we do behind the scenes, whether we're putting out our digital magazine content, YouTube content, podcasts. There's a whole world of people and work that happens to make these things successful and deliver impactful content to our audience. I've had the pleasure of knowing you, gosh, I think probably about 5 or 6 years.
Sounds right.
I've worked for a competitor to Destiny Image for a time, yet I would bump into your wife and some of the other DI team members as we would travel to conferences and events, and we'd hang out and have coffee, and that's where we first met you. However, I know broadly to my audience, to the DI audience, you're still a fairly new face. I think people have seen stuff from you in some of the newsletters and on the digital magazine, but they've not ever had the pleasure of meeting you yet. So let's have you kick this off by sharing a bit of the Joel Marzzarella origin story. So for all of us meeting you for the first time on my podcast, give us some context. What are a few things we should know about you?
Well, the big thing is that I'm a bit of a nerd. And whenever I mean nerd, I don't mean like the trendy nerd. I mean like the super bad nerd. Like right in my office up here, I have a lightsaber that I specifically crafted and everything. It lights up and everything. I'm a big sci-fi fan. But probably more interesting for most people is that I found God really, really young. I was 3 years old whenever I went up to my mother and I was like, hey, I want to know Jesus better. And I really want him to be a part of me. And so that's kind of shocking to a lot of folks whenever they hear young conversion kind of deal. But he's been with me since almost the beginning. And I just can't imagine my life without him. We, as a family, we traveled around. We originally are from the Pittsburgh area in Pennsylvania, but we moved all the way out to on the border of Kentucky. So for a little bit, I had a bit of an accent. And I'm glad that I lost it. No offense to anyone, but I think it's makes it a little bit easier to. It makes people take me a little bit more serious, I guess. But
yeah, I've never picked up on a subtle Kentucky accent at all. So you must have gotten rid of it for good. In terms of your family, you come from an Italian family. Talk to us a little bit about Italian families and food, because we see caricatures of that in movies and whatnot, but is it a real thing? Is food just such a big event in your family's life?
Oh, it's huge. It's super funny because anytime we go anywhere, it doesn't matter if it's down the street or if we're going across the world. The first question we have when we come back to the family member is, what did you guys have to eat? Just tell me about it so that we can experience it almost in a second hand. Right. And all the holidays are marked with specific meals. So for example, we just had Easter just a little bit ago. We had specifically made lamb, Italian Easter bread, which is this citrusy type of sweet bread. And then we also have stuffed artichoke, mashed potatoes with lamb sauce. I mean, it's we go the whole mile. And then for Christmas, of course, we have the fishes. We have in Southern Italy, they do a lot of different fishes. Some places it's the 12 fishes for the 12 apostles. Sometimes it's the 7 for the days of the week. My mother goes, all right, we're not going too crazy. We're going to do the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So we have 3 fishes. So, but we always have that. And then we have a little bit of a birthday cake usually for Jesus whenever he was born in Christmas. And then whenever he was born again in Easter.
I love that. I love that you have spiritual meanings behind the numbers of the fishes that might happen to be on display on the buffet, so to speak. And one fun place I want to go, and I always ask you and your wife to share this story, but I think it would be intriguing to the audience. You met your wife in a very unique way. You're the only person. I mean, I've met people who met on AOL back in the day, and maybe they met on Facebook, and people meeting online, nothing new. But your story is totally unique from my perspective. So tell us how you and Malika got connected. It's a fun story.
Sure. Well, back when we were back in 2009, we were both really into video games. That ties back into the whole I was a nerd kind of deal. And so you actually made video games. So we were a part of this community of people that were making their own video games. And we just connected. She was in Estonia at the time, though. I was over here in the US. And we just got to talking. We would send messages back and forth to each other. And we're talking like long, like letters of just, this is what's going on in my world and everything. And then eventually we ended up doing a Skype call. That's how long ago that was, a Skype call. And we just ended up talking. And then we ended up just being like really good friends. We talk all the time. And there was a big time difference too. We're talking 7-hour time difference. And eventually, actually on Christmas Eve, I was like, you know what? I really like her. I really like her. And I have to tell her, because if I don't, I'm just going to explode pretty much. And so I confessed to her really dramatically. And I was like, I like you. And she's like, yeah, I like you too. And I'm like, no. I like you. I was 16 at the time. So give me a break.
Those are big words for a 16-year-old there.
Oh, they really are. And she's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like you too. So we officially started dating then, but she wasn't saved at the time. See, the big key here is that in Estonia, you have a very, very high agnostic atheist community. It's because of the Soviet Union's influence. You have like almost complete absence of God there. And that was really scary for me to go into a relationship with someone who was not saved. And honestly, to be completely frank, that was like a big game breaker. Like I was like, this is against the rules. I shouldn't be doing this. But you know how there are certain things where, you kind of break convention because God has his way. Well, that was what it was. And I don't know why I did it. It was crazy, but we ended up going, I went, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to start dating. And so she comes over to the States, which is a whole nother crazy part of the story. But my grandfather, who was like super, like very, very stoic, he fell in love with the story. He was like, I want to pay for her ticket to come over. So she comes over, meets the whole family. And I said to God, I said, I can't do this in the long term. I can't like be with her if she doesn't get saved. So she was here for 28 days. And I said to God, I said, if she's the one, she needs to get saved before this trip is over. And it was literally the second to last day. She comes over to my mother and she goes, I kind of accepted that Jesus guy. And at that very moment, I knew we were going to get married. It was right then and there.
I love that. And the rest is history. That story needs to be made into some kind of, at least like a TV episode, if not a short film or something at some point. It's just so fun. And I love that you're kind of bargaining with God, being like, so God, I really like this girl, but if this is a thing, you got to help a brother out here and get this girl saved.
Right.
And so,
right.
Oh man, I love that. That's what, I met my wife at a bookstore. That's not really exciting as meeting your wife on an indie video game forum. So thank you for sharing that. I can't hear that story enough. I put you and Malika on the spot when we travel and meet new people. I'm like, you guys got to tell your story. Just because it's so much fun. What I love about it is it's so unique is people will remember you guys. When you tell that story, they're like, oh. And so it's, and again, this is a trick when you travel and meet lots of people. If you have one or two key stories that you can share that make you stand out, people will remember you, and usually in more of a positive way if it's a good story. So always have one or two key kind of origin story, interesting stories about yourself that you can share. It helps build quick rapport and relationships with people. Pro marketing and networking tip right there for you on this episode of the Shaun Tabbitt Show. So Joel, you've been with us here at Destiny Image. How many months now? Is it 5 months, 6 months?
6 months.
Feels like a year to me because you've
Yeah.
been part of the team in my mind forever. Tell us like what's your title? What's your role? Why did we have you join the team?
Sure. So I am the Imprint Marketing Associate. But more to the point is that I usually do a lot of the editing for the DI magazine. So I'm going and pulling content from a lot of different books and finding these beautiful gems of just inspiration of God, what he's doing, and putting it out there so that people can experience it. Some of them are very they're just super interesting. They're just stories, right? Of people experiencing deliverance or healing, incredible miracles of what God's doing in this very moment. And some of them are very how to, I'm experiencing this mental health battle. Here's some tips. Here's some practical tips on how to take care of that. And just finding and picking these pieces and also being time sensitive to them. So, for example, you have a lot right now is going on. It's a little dark. It feels a little dark and oppressive. So how can we grow and find God in these very moments?
Well, I love that your role, and I actually, we were all together for sales conference the other week, so I get to hang out. You had no choice in the matter. I just showed up one day in your office and get to see you working behind the scenes. And so I love that this role pulls on, you're a big reader, so you have a love of books and literature. You're artistic, you're creative. I've seen you in meetings and in your office designing, banners and graphics to go along with the content you're creating for the digital magazine and such. So talk to us a little bit about how this role pulls on different creative passions for you, because I love that this pulls on different things that just getting to know you through the years, you're excited and you're enthusiastic about. And that is one of the things I think that's beautiful about the company we work for and the role that we get to have in creating content to help market books and messages is you get to do all kinds of interesting things when you work in these sorts of marketing roles. So how does this job pull on your passions and allow you to spark creativity, maybe in a way that you didn't even expect until you got into the role?
Sure. I mean, I love to read. I was a big sci-fi fan. So whenever I read like 600-page tomes and because I want to make sure that I have an investment, man.
It's a book, it's a doorstop, it's a weapon,
right.
All the things.
It's everything you need. So for this, it's the books are very DI books are very easy to read by comparison, I'd say. It's very easy to just go through and find it. So not only do I get to read, but I also get to do a little bit of design work. And I love doing that. I love expressing with images, ideas. And a lot of our ideas are kind of abstract, right? You have these crazy experiences of for example, a girl, her arm just completely miraculously gets healed. How do I express that on an image to make it pop out? And really, so that not only is it to catch the attention, because that's part of it, but also to do that story justice, to get it the attention that it deserves and the glory to God that it deserves. And then also I get to experience God and everything. I get to see what he's doing right at this very moment. And that's so exciting too. So not only do I get to read, I get to design, I get to see God in everyday life. And it's just great. It's just a complete environment where I can continue to grow and fill into. It's just exciting with that.
Well, I really love how your work has taken our digital magazine to a new level. And not that the folks working on it before you came on board were doing a bad job at all. It's just as the company grows and our responsibilities expand, and we just need more butts and seats doing the important work that we do. So you've been a wonderful addition to the team. And I love that you take it so seriously, because when you're creating tons of online content for blogs and social media, it can be really easy to just mail it in because you're busy and use stock art and not put a lot of time into it. And I love just having seen you work where you're taking the time to like, okay, we need a compelling headline and the artwork has to make sense and it has to do justice to the message. It can't just be clickbait. Yes, it does need to be attractive and intriguing and, make somebody go, oh, I probably should click on that and read it. But at the same time, I love the creativity and the integrity that you're bringing to the work that you do, because it's really, really important. And it's a unique way that you can help new readers and existing readers find out about our authors and their messages and really get them connected into the whole world of content that we're creating here at Destiny Image, because we're not just publishing books. We've got a big YouTube channel. We've got Destiny Images TV. We've got a podcast network, the digital magazine, a big email newsletter, all these things. And so those are all different places that people can connect into our world, and also places that people can like and share and do all that to help us get the word out about the work that we're doing. So I love your role and your part in all of that. I'm curious to hear how your perspective on maybe Destiny Image or Christian publishing has changed, because I know when I started out in publishing about a decade ago, I'd worked outside of publishing companies. I'd been huge in the book review blogging scene. I consulted for some publishing companies. But you're always kind of like the guy on the outside of the aquarium looking in. And then once I jumped inside the fishbowl, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like a whole new language and terms. And I'm like, oh, this is what publishing, there's a lot that happens to get that book on a shelf in a bookstore. Obviously, your wife has worked for DI longer than even I have. And so you got to experience Destiny Image through her lens and her experiences. But now you're 6 months into also being inside the aquarium. So how has your perspective on publishing and Christian publishing changed? Because it's one thing when your spouse works there. It's another thing when you're in the thick and thin of the day-to-day.
I think it's incredible because there is like such a reverence for the messages. Like we take them very seriously. Like it's not just, okay, we got to turn these out. Like, let's get it go. Let's just make some money off of it. No, like this, it's like serious. Like we take it very seriously. We're praying in our meetings. We're just making sure that not only is it like important to the author, but it's important to God. And I love that. I love that it's not really just a business. It's more of almost like a ministry. And so we're trying to serve God, these authors, and also the reader base too. And that's incredible. It's very humbling to me. Like it's incredible to I try not to get lost and okay, I've got to go do all these things. I try to ground myself and say, no, like I am like reaching out to these folks, all these people, and I have to do the best that I can. And so I just have a really big respect for what's going on. I was a DI reader way before. And a lot of the prophets that we publish and have published were ones that were big in my family. Both my parents came out of Assemblies of God. So it was like, it's just kind of an extension of what I grew up with. So.
Well, and the thing I love, and I'm about this June, I believe 3 years into my own journey with Destiny Image, is how much we're still dialed in to the vision of our founder, Don Noray Sr., who he went home to be with the Lord a few years back. But I just love as a family-owned business run by the second generation that we've not lost the spark of the vision that God gave him originally back in the early 80s. And that was to publish the prophets and not mute the words that God is giving the prophets. What's really been fun for me is my role has shifted into doing more broader content, podcast, video, TV stuff. Is that was also part of Don Sr.'s original vision. We had Destiny Image Films, and he had a heart and a vision for doing video content back in the day when it was extremely expensive and extremely difficult. And now it's very turnkey for us to do tons and tons of video content. And so even though we're a lot farther down the road in the journey, we're still able to operate within his original vision and framework that God gave him for delivering these messages to the world. And so I love that we have this groundedness that keeps us on that right path. Joel, in terms of, this would be a question kind of focused on our authors. We all create content, we're promoting, we're getting the word out about things. Just being willing to be patient and consistent while you're building content and build, a platform and an audience. You do that for the digital magazine. I do that in a bunch of other formats. And you have some content that you're like, woohoo! It's like a hockey stick up. You're like, yes, I want to do that all the time. Sadly, it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. Like 20% of those unicorns were like, man, why did that work? And how do I do that again? And the other 80% just, it does okay, but it's not anything exciting. So maybe operating in that tension of not everything's going to be a home run, but it's all part of the process of building the platform that you need over the long term to get the word out. So what have you learned about that in this part of your journey?
Sure. For me, it's been a learning process. Obviously, it was nice that I had a foundation, but a lot of that is I'm building up and trying to make sure that people are engaging with the content. So sometimes it's all about what words are really going to connect with your audience. And not just that, but also what messages do people need to hear? So there's going to be some that are, it's medicine, it's icky, I don't want that. And then there's some like, oh, yes, this is candy. And finding that balance between the two, sometimes you can, mix and match of this is really going to stretch people. This is going to allow them to grow spiritually, but also having it so that you can also give people things that they need, like with, like I said, like I was talking about mental health or intercessory prayer, things that can help people grow and achieve what God has for them. So patience is a big part of that. And yeah, consistency.
Well, and I think part of it too is just realizing that even though you don't always get tons of feedback, real ministry is happening. And, you talk to somebody who works, say, for Sid Roth's ministry, and they'll talk about how they'll still get emails and letters from people saying, oh, I watched this interview with James Gall. And in the interview they're referencing is from like 15 years ago. And they're like, oh, that thing he prayed, it was just for me. And so there's an interesting long tail where the Holy Spirit moves through content, whether we produced it yesterday or 10 to 20 years ago. God still breathes on that, and people get healed, saved, delivered, all the things. And so my encouragement is just know that, you'll get some feedback, but I feel like when we get to heaven, we're like, oh, wow, God, that's what you were doing with that content. I didn't see all that. And the thing is, a lot of the things that we produce that go out online, it goes to places we can never go. If you have a podcast or other place where you can kind of track the geographic data of where your content's being watched or listened to or downloaded, you get a perspective like, oh, there are literally people in China and Africa and all other parts of the globe who are consuming this content. And I don't know why. Maybe it's they want to learn English better. Maybe it's they don't have access to Christian books, but they can get your podcast or they can listen to your sermon. And so just know that your messages go places you may never go. But when you invest that time, God sees that deposit and he gives you a return on it. And you just might not see that return until we're all on the other side of the veil, so to speak. Joel, in terms of people seeing the work that you do for us at Destiny Image, where can we go online? A lot of your stuff is in the digital magazine. Where do we discover that?
Yeah, you can find it on Destiny Image /blog, and that will give you a basic outline. But if you do want to sign up, there's also a join free button on the website that will allow you to sign up for the newsletter.
And I'll put a link in the show notes so you can check out our digital magazine if you want. Articles, video content, all the great stuff that we produce delivered right to your inbox. We'll have a link for you to sign up for that as well. Sadly, because we're running out of time, it's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabat Show to a close. Thank you so much for being a part of my conversation today with my friend Joel Marzzarella. And Joel, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to get to know you. I so appreciate the fine work that you're doing for us at Destiny Image, both serving our internal team and serving our authors. You're a blessing to have on the team, and I was just glad to be able to be a part of introducing you to the Destiny Image world.
Well, thank you so much, and God bless you all.